feels like for the past 15 years, women online have been pulled between two extremes that just keep getting rebranded. On one side, you've got the girl boss, which later morphed into clean girl, that girl, it girl aesthetics. It's all the same fantasy of a woman who has her life perfectly put together. Flawless routines, constant productivity, ambition, beauty, wellness. On the other side, there's her opposite, the unlikable, messy woman, the loser girls, the failures, the female rage symbols. They push back against that impossible ideal, showcasing the burnout, the loneliness, and the fact that being human means living with both the beauty and the darkness within you. But even though I like my unhinged women, this messy, unlikable side isn't necessarily always better. Girl failure can be just as suffocating as the polished ideal. It can be relatable and freeing, but it can also spiral into obsession, despair, or self-destruction. It's easy to keep rotting in bed, consumed by your own problems, illnesses, and anxieties, drifting without dreams or ambitions because the pressure to be perfect has made everything feel pointless. May embodies this extreme. She's the horror version of girl failure, a lonely, obsessive, perfection-seeking woman whose desperation in the end turns violent. In this video, I want to explore what can drive a woman to fail so completely and why May's story still feels heartbreakingly relatable today. May's story starts with her eye, but her eye condition is a little confusing. The movie calls it a lazy eye, which is a common term for amblyopia, a condition where one eye doesn't connect properly with the brain, so its vision never fully develops and can't be completely corrected with glasses or lenses. Amblyopia is primarily treated with patching, also called occlusion therapy, where the healthy eye is covered to force the brain to use the weaker one. There's also strabismus when the eyes don't line up properly. Glasses, special lenses, or eye exercises can help improve alignment in some cases. Strabismus often leads to amblyopia, but not all cases of amblyopia involve misaligned eyes. In other words, you can have a lazy eye even if your eyes look normal and straight. That's actually my personal experience. In May's case, she clearly has strabismus and she has likely developed amblyopia as a consequence, because the film shows her patching her eye as a child. Now, why am I explaining all of this? Because I think the movie is a bit messy in how it portrays these eye conditions. Many viewers might not even notice this, but I think it affects how you see May's childhood experience and her mother. May's right eye is supposed to be her lazy eye, so as a form of treatment, she has to patch her left healthy eye, which she kinda does. But from what I've read about strabismus, and if any viewers with this condition want to correct me, please do, patching wouldn't make May's eye straighten immediately. So not only would she look unusual with a patch on, but everyone could still see her misaligned eye, which would further isolate her from her peers as being a weirdo. The movie makes it seem like May's covering her lazy eye, as if the patch itself is just about hiding the imperfection. That May's mother is so obsessed with her ideal image, she can't bear to be reminded that her child isn't perfect, so she just wants to hide this flaw from everyone else's eyes, including hers.
We're gonna make you look perfect.
And this works, but that probably wasn't the movie's intention. This is what I mean when I say that the eye situation is wonky. Even though Lucky McKee, the director and writer of May, has a lazy eye himself with strabismus and based the script on his own experiences. If the patch is meant for treatment and is supposed to cover her healthy eye, that means May's mother cares enough about her daughter to actually follow through with the treatment. The real issue comes when she tells May to keep the patch covered with her hair if she wants to make friends. May's mother does have an issue with perfectionism. From the way she carries herself to the way she hovers over May's appearance to how visibly irritated she gets when May tears open a birthday present she probably spent hours meticulously wrapping.
Now it's ruined.
At the same time, May's mother isn't just some evil witch. The movie hints that she's been struggling with loneliness since childhood, pouring herself into making and collecting dolls as a way to cope. Gifting May her cherished first doll named Susie is her own attempt at connection and a way to make up for what she can't teach, the skills of normal socialization.
She was my best friend, and now she'll be yours.
Lucky McKee revealed in the DVD commentary that there were originally a lot more scenes exploring May's childhood, including her relationship with her father. Most of that material was cut, partly because it kept hammering the same point. May is unconsciously taught to chase elusive perfection not only in herself but in everyone else. She starts believing that revealing her true self can bring nothing but rejection and ridicule. Her experiences with other kids and her inability to make even a single friend only solidifies this belief in her mind. As a a result, May grows up socially inept, hyper-aware, and painfully awkward. Her lazy eye no longer just a medical condition, but a symbol of the warped, perfection-obsessed way she sees the world and everyone in it. As film writer Kayla Janice explains in her book House of Psychotic Women, quote, "In literature, visual arts, and film, one eye being different from the other typically signifies an altered perception, an ability to see things differently from how other people see them. In some stories, it might be an indication of second sight or psychic ability, but in others, it denotes isolation and the character's inability to convey what they see to others who don't share their point of view." End quote. May's mother tells her,
If you can't find a friend, make one.
it's meant as comfort, but May carries it into adulthood. For her, real human connection might always be just out of reach, something she will spend her whole life trying to grasp. The movie skips over May's teenage years. As an adult, she's living alone in a house crowded with dolls she inherited from her mother. Her parents are gone, dead, or absent, you never really know, and her only companion is Susie, the doll she talks to every day. Even though her mother isn't around anymore, May still won't take Susie out of her glass case, just like she was told.
No, you can't take her out. She's special.
Susie represents May's deteriorating mind and sanity as it begins to crack more and more throughout the story until it finally breaks into pieces and the doll is torn to shreds, coinciding with May's descent into violence. Lucky McKee mentioned in his commentary that he drew inspiration from Polanski's Repulsion, where the apartment mirrors the lead female character's fragile psyche. May's inability to touch her best friend, her own doll, leaves her starved for any real physical contact, which makes her fascination with human and animal anatomy and the macabre makes so much sense.
What you reading about?
Amputation.
Is that for work?
Nope. Just for fun.
Originally, May's story was supposed to take place in college, but making her a vet assistant gives her obsession a believable context that suits her character. Despite her lack of social skills, May manages to hold a job and even does it well, but only because it's a task she genuinely cares about. She's still awkward and sometimes she doesn't fully understand what's socially appropriate and what isn't, but following instructions, focusing on her work, and interacting in a structured, predictable environment comes easier to her. Moreover, she isn't dealing with people much because it's just her boss and the receptionist Polly. It's the unstructured, emotional side of human interaction, friendships, intimacy, navigating and processing emotions where May utterly fails. May's fascination with gore seems to start in childhood, right when she's given Susie. Lucky McKee mentioned that there was originally a scene showing her shooting a bird, chopping off its wings, and gluing it to Susie's glass case to make it fly, but it was cut so as not to foreshadow her later capacity for violence. May studies and dissects bodies to understand them completely. It's an extreme form of intimacy because she never experienced real closeness. It gives her a way to connect on her own terms. May craves physical sensations at the extreme, needing to feel everything far beyond what most people would consider normal. Even pressing a scalpel into her thumb until it bleeds gives May a strange sense of calm.
Jesus, what are you doing?
Relaxing.
The intensity is exactly what she needs to feel alive, to satisfy a craving for sensation her body and mind never learned to get in normal ways. With others, especially Adam, her love interest, May can't gauge what's appropriate. On one hand, she was never taught how. On the other, ordinary touch seems to not be enough. She kisses too hard, bites, shoves, or hugs with too much force.
I taught you how to kiss.
May's obsession with anatomy and the morbid bleeds into how she sees people, not as whole, complex beings, but as a collection of parts she can isolate, analyze, and idealize. Hands, necks, legs, ears, even fur when it comes to animals. Sometimes, it's almost comical how detached she is from the person as a whole. With Adam, for example, she seems more fascinated by his hands than by him as a person. By the end, as her sanity unravels, she ignores him entirely and talks directly to his hands.
Later, hands.
One of May's other hobbies is sewing. She likes making her own clothes, sometimes out of mismatched scraps, which parallels her compulsive desire to perfect, correct, and control everything she touches. She can't accept anything or anyone as complete or imperfect. Nothing feels right as it is. Everything must be taken apart and rebuilt to fit her idea of ideal. Later, she extends this impulse to people, literally trying to assemble a perfect friend from the body parts she admires.
So many pretty parts, no pretty holes.
Quote, May is about loneliness really and how to get through that in your own way. It's a fantasy, but it's very much based on my own life. I grew up in a real rural area and no one was into the same things as me until I went to the University of Southern California. And suddenly it was like everybody was into the same kind of stuff and I made a lot of friends on the surface level. But I learned that the more you get to know somebody, you discover parts of their personality that you don't like. And you kind of wish you could just stick with that thing that works between the two of you. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to be able to take all of the parts of the people you like and combine them to make the perfect friend? It's also about the way you can be totally into somebody and care so much about them and not get that in return with the same intensity. End quote. May's struggles with herself go beyond her appearance and her eye. She's haunted by the fear that if anyone ever saw the real her odd interests, her flaws, her awkwardness, they'd laugh and call her weird. Being labeled weird or a freak is her biggest trigger. She's had her share of scorning experiences. Whenever she takes off her glasses and reveals her crossed eye, people quickly look away, keeping their distance. So May keeps her head down and her glasses on as much as she can, until she gets infatuated with Adam, or more specifically with his hands. The first time she sees him, his face is hidden as he squats by the car, and it's only his hands that May notices. But to May, that's enough. She immediately starts projecting perfection onto someone she barely knows.
The boy I saw today is different. I like every part of him.
May starts building a fantasy around Adam. She begins stalking him, getting contact lenses so she doesn't have to wear her glasses around him. It's quite sad. She's convinced he's flawless and different from everyone else, yet she's too scared to risk showing her real self. In her mind, if she could just have this one perfect person, then everything would finally be okay. Her flaws, her loneliness, none of it would matter. May even puts together a whole new outfit for a date that Adam hasn't agreed to or even knows about. She simply comes to sit at the same cafe he visits, hoping to be noticed, which surprisingly actually works. Her unusual focus on his hands catches Adam's attention, and the next time they cross paths at the laundromat, he's the one to initiate their interaction.
What's your name?
May.
It's here that May also starts learning how to smoke from Adam, a small act that carries bigger meaning. It's about fitting in, seeming socially normal, and sharing something Adam likes so she can feel closer to him.
Practice.
Throughout the story, each cigarette marks a tiny transformation, a small deliberate step toward the version May wants to project, confident, composed, socially competent. But that same growing self-assurance ultimately drives her toward violence and destruction. While reading articles about May, I noticed that Adam often gets looked down upon for rejecting her. People find it ironic because he is clearly into horror and fictional gore.
I love gross.
Really?
Discuss me, please.
Some people say men want a weird, eccentric girlfriend, but when they actually get one, they can't handle it. It's funny, I can admit that, but it's really just a simplification of a deeper universal fear, opening up to someone and realizing you don't quite match, even if it seems like you share the same interests. As people online say nowadays, you have to find someone who matches your freak. For a while, Adam is intrigued by May's eccentric nature, assuming it mirrors his own. But when he shows her his gory short film, a couple sexually devouring each other, and May tries to replicate it by biting his lip until it bleeds and smearing his blood on herself, ignoring his clear discomfort, he wants to leave.
I think I'm gonna go.
His reaction is pretty justifiable. It's a pure mismatch in temperament and social understanding, which not really anyone's fault. May struggles with social cues and often takes things literally, but even someone with more typical social skills could easily find themselves in the same situation. In the past, Adam pretended to playfully stab May with a toy knife. So when he says he likes weird, messed up stuff, it's safe for May to assume that Adam might react positively when she tries to replicate the same energy from his short film. But it's not even the biting or the blood that pushes Adam away. It's that May doesn't seem concerned about his well-being, even when he asks for a towel. As Adam tries to leave, he hears May yelling at Susie and hitting the glass case. It shocks him, and he figures he should probably keep his distance.
I told you to face the goddamn wall!
Adam's real flaws show in how he handles May afterwards. He ghosts her instead of being honest, privately thinking of her as a lunatic he managed to escape.
You know what? We're not talking about May anymore. I've successfully escaped that lunatic.
By the end, you also witness how he mistreats his new girlfriend.
Not you, dumb shit.
Dumb shit. I guess that would be me.
For May, moments like this would later justify her obsession with taking body parts from people she interacts with. Once she sees their cruel or flawed side, she convinces herself they don't deserve their perfect look and features.
You know how when you meet someone and you think you like them, but then the more you talk to them, you see parts you don't like, and sometimes you don't end up liking any parts at all.
Polly, the receptionist at the clinic, ends up being the only real female presence in May's life. She also happens to be a lesbian who gets interested in May, so for once May isn't the one desperately chasing someone.
I wanted to kiss you since I first saw you.
On the surface, Polly seems more accepting of May's odd behavior, but that acceptance feels shallow. Polly is inattentive, a little airheaded, and mostly wrapped up in her own desires. She likes May, maybe even finds her fascinating, but she doesn't really see her. That's Polly's flaw. She treats May like a passing curiosity, like personal entertainment. And it's funny that her name is Polly, as she resists being tied down to just one person and prefers to chase quick thrills or whatever catches her interest in the moment. Nowadays, people read May as bisexual representation or even as a portrait of autism. Even though those weren't the film's original themes, you can make a case for both of them if you want to. It's art. On my first watch, I thought the film was very erotically charged, but rewatching it, you see the uglier sides of every character clearer, especially Polly. Because she's a female character and a lesbian, she often gets a pass. But if you step back, her behavior is pretty questionable. At work, she makes sexual jokes, kisses May on the lips. All of these things would be considered sexual harassment at workplace.
Do you like pussy?
What? Cats?
And pressures her into taking her cat Loopy, knowing it's hard for May to say no. Moreover, she takes advantage of May's vulnerability to sleep with her. May never seems romantically interested in Polly. She likes her neck, that's true, but nothing more than that. She's fixated on Adam right until the very end. Every time she turns to Polly, it's when she feels crushed by Adam's rejections. When Polly invites her over, May is visibly detached, lost in her own head as Polly kisses her and unbuttons her blouse. She only starts showing physical interest after Polly says she likes weird and confirms she's serious about May.
Are you serious? About me?
It doesn't look like May's exploring her sexuality, but rather grasping at any chance for human warmth and touch. And then May notices a mole on Polly's hand and she freezes. She doesn't want this hand to touch her anymore, but the scene ends here and you just get the sense that May lets it all happen because she can't say no. May's thing with Polly is one of those situations anyone could end up in. Just another miscommunication. Polly never says she's seen other people, and May, desperate for closeness, assumes she wants to only be with her. So after Adam ignores her again, she runs to Polly's place and finds her with her other lover, Ambrosia. And to May, it feels like a complete betrayal.
You're jealous.
Polly finds it pretty amusing, and even though she isn't trying to be cruel, she's pretty careless.
I can kick her out if you really want me to. You know you're my main mama.
Polly's whole attitude to life stands as a contrast to May's. She doesn't take things too seriously, she just enjoys people for what they offer in the moment, taking the good and ignoring the bad. The mole on her hand is a perfect example. Polly's never thought of it as ugly because her grandma always told her,
My grandma said it's the imperfections that make you special.
That one line alone shows how differently she was raised compared to May, who grew up learning to hide flaws at all costs. But the moment May asks if she's ever thought of removing it, Polly gets self-conscious and suddenly wants May's opinion.
What do you think?
It shows just how fragile confidence can be and how a woman's words cut deeper than a man's. Because she knows what it's like, she lives under the same pressures you do, and this suddenly can make her judgment feel impossible to ignore.
You have a beautiful neck.
Thank you.
Adam's taken for the evening.
I like your earrings.
Thanks. Nice costume.
Just as she picked up smoking from Adam, May copies Polly's style, not just to seem more normal, but to appear more feminine. For her date with Adam, she puts her hair up and wears a slimmer dress with a neckline and straps much like Polly's. It's interesting that despite being starved for a real companionship and only talking to dolls, and even working at a vet clinic, May never seeks a pet for herself. When Polly hands her Loopy, it becomes clear why. Her need for control and perfection makes even a cat impossible to connect with. At the clinic, May controls everything, how animals are handled, examined, and treated, so there's no need to deal with whether they like her or not. But a pet brings emotional give and take. It has its own will, and she can't manage that. When Loopy rejects her, it mirrors all the rejection she's felt from humans.
Come on, girl. It's been a really rough couple of days.
That moment sparks her first real act of violence, and Loopy becomes her first victim. Loopy's situation shows how impossible it is to control affection, even from a cat. No matter how much May wants love on her own terms, relationships have a will of their own. That same lesson repeats when she starts spending time with the blind kids. She's drawn to them because they can't judge her the way sighted people do. Petey in particular fascinates her. Even among the blind kids, she keeps a distance, much like May does from others.
Go away, Snigglehead.
You are so mean to me, Petey.
May sees the possibility of a special connection with Petey, the same she has with her doll Susie. She learns all the kids' names. Petey even makes an ashtray for her.
You smoke?
No,
Well, then who you make an ashtray for, Petey?
you smoke.
May feels accepted, and that becomes intoxicating. May even decides to bring Susie along, thinking her treasured doll friend will also be appreciated, copying her mother's way of trying to connect and comfort others. But the kids don't get it. To them, Susie is just a box, and when they tear her apart, May is forced to face the limits of control, the fragility of the perfection she chases, and the depth of her loneliness. In that moment, something in her finally breaks, and she stops believing anyone can ever truly understand her. May's first human victim is a punk guy who spots her one day gloomy on the bench and asks if she's okay. After losing Susie, May sinks into depression and stops caring how she appears to others. At first, she barely responds when he tries to cheer her up, but when she hears he's just trying to be friendly, that word friend pulls her back and she invites him to her place, hoping to finally have a real connection. On paper, it seems like they should connect. He's a punk, an outsider, someone who should understand what it's like to feel different, to be judged by others, but reality is never that simple. At May's place, the guy asks for ice cubes and heads straight to her fridge. She tries to stop him, but it's too late. When he sees Loopy, May blurts out in the most desperate childlike way,
So, are we like best friends now that you've seen what's inside my freezer?
The guy calls her an utter freak, and May bursts into tears, until her gaze lands on a pair of scissors. After years of being labeled weird, May finally snaps, unleashing all her anger on this guy and killing him. Quote, after her first killing, May completely detaches herself from social reality and becomes more confident as a result, a feeling of euphoria common in short-term murderers. This is because there has been a drastic shift in self-concept. She has accepted the stigma of otherness and has abandoned trying to achieve other people's standards of perfection. End quote.
I need more parts.
At the beginning, I mentioned that Susie represented May's sanity, but the doll also embodied May's idealized version of herself. Even the Halloween costume May makes mirrors Susie's dress. Throughout the movie, she wears a lot of maroon, echoing Susie's colors, but in the end, her transformation is complete. Inside and out, May is different. Her voice is lower, more relaxed, she's confident, snarky, and completely focused on her goal of gathering parts to build the perfect companion. She's done waiting for connection to come to her, now she's determined to create it herself. Her dynamics with Polly and Adam completely flip. There are even visual parallels between their first dates and their last encounters when May comes to take their parts. With Polly, it's no longer May being seduced. She invites herself over and takes the dominant role on the couch, reversing their earlier positions. With Adam, May shifts from the awkward girl nervously eating mac and cheese at her place to the one sitting across from Adam in his apartment, calmly telling him exactly what she wants.
Touch my face.
Piece by piece, May builds her perfect companion. Loopy's fur, the punk guy's arms, Polly's neck, Ambrosia's legs, Adam's girlfriend's ears, and Adam's hands. She also uses Susie's eyes and takes the ashtray Petey made her, the one she'd also thrown at Loopy, rearranging the letters to spell Amy, the name she gives her new friend. Amy becomes both May's creation and her replacement. What's striking is how grotesque May's creation ends up looking. In her mind, she's finally built her ideal human. The film ends up making a sharp point about objectification and how it shows up in different ways. Adam checking May out in the laundromat is a natural passing kind of objectification which we all do. Polly reducing Ambrosia to a piece of ass is a harsher, dismissive version which sees people mainly as a source of sexual pleasure.
You understand it's not serious, right? It's just a piece of ass.
For May, though, objectification becomes total. She doesn't just reduce people to parts in her head, she literally can't enjoy or connect with them as whole beings if they're not perfect. On paper, May's creature should be beautiful, a collection of perfect human features, but stitched together it looks uncanny. That's the problem with beauty standards. Big lips, tiny nose, long legs, each might be desirable alone, but stacked together it stops looking human. Plastic surgery works the same way. Tweak one or two things and it can feel empowering, chase perfection everywhere, and the result looks hollow and artificial. And yet, even after assembling all these pieces, something is missing. Amy cannot truly see May. Originally, May was supposed to cut her hand and place it as the final ingredient instead of the heart, but using her eye makes more sense and brings the story full circle. By giving Amy her own eye, May merges herself with another being, allowing her creation to see the world as she does and perhaps see her the way she wants to be seen. But the ending itself also carries a more positive, almost fairy tale quality. Her lazy, imperfect eye contains her humanity and soul. By offering it, she completes Amy while acknowledging a profound truth about life, that perfection is an illusion. Her flaw, once a source of shame and isolation, becomes the very thing that allows a real connection, showing that imperfection is essential to being human. The ending is deeply tragic. May imagines Amy stroking her hair as she dies, and for the first time she experiences the intimacy and tenderness she has always longed for, even though it comes at the cost of her life. May's story illustrates that girl failure is rarely the result of one factor alone. Her upbringing, environment, and societal pressures all shape her, but so do her personal choices. How she acts on her obsessions, isolates herself, and channels her growing self-assurance into violence and self-destruction rather than using it to build connections and grow as a person. May is neither purely a victim nor purely a perpetrator of her failures. Her quest to find a flawless person is hopeless from the beginning because that person doesn't exist. Since May is so focused on her own loneliness and on finding perfection, she doesn't notice and can't appreciate that people actually want to be around her, weirdness and all. May's tragedy shows that the struggle to be seen and accepted is universal, but in order to avoid her fate, you have to let go of rigid expectations, not only for yourself but others. Embrace imperfect connections, be willing to open yourself to pain, and keep on looking for someone who can match your freak.